Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on Canto4, Chapter 8, text 79. And okay, this one more. Yade kapade nasapartha vivar bhakas.
Kapadena sapathivakhbhakhas.
Tastho tad angustanipeditamahi.
Tastho tad angustanipitotamahi.
Nanama tatrardam ibhendra dishtita.
Nanama tatradam ibendra drishtita.
Ibendradishtita.
Tariva savye tarataha pade pade.
Tariva savyetarataha pade pade.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. As Dhruv Maharaj, the king's son, kept himself steadily standing on one leg, the pressure of his big toe pushed down half the earth. Just as an elephant being carried on a boat rocks the boat left and right with his every step. The most significant expression in this verse is Parthivarbhakaha, son of the king. When Dhruv Maharaj was at home, although he was the king's son, he was prevented from getting on the lap of his father. But when he became advanced in self-realization or devotional service, by the pressure of his toe, he could push down the whole earth. That is the difference between ordinary consciousness and Krishna consciousness. In ordinary consciousness, a king's son may be refused something even by his father. But when the same person becomes fully Krishna conscious within his heart, he can push down the earth with the pressure of his toe. So here Prabhupada is explaining to us, as we heard in the previous verse also, that the whole earth was trembling because Dhruv Maharaj became so powerful by engaging in devotional service that he became even more powerful than the mystic yogis. Mystic yogis get this eight kind of perfection, but a pure devotee has much more powers. The devotee may choose not to exhibit the power. This we are talking about pure devotees. Pure devotees. So they may choose not to exhibit the power, but they do have. We see like in the case of Rasikananda, he was the disciple of Shamananda Prabhu. So he was sitting by the bank of the river and he was, taking a bath and cleaning himself. And then he heard that magician has come. I forget exactly that the magician is coming in like a wonderful way. So Rasikananda said, okay, I'll go meet him. And he flew with the stone that he was sitting on. He flew to see the magician. Like that, Rasikananda, sometimes he would exhibit, he would ride on a tiger. He would exhibit it as sometimes very extraordinary, wonderful activities. So here, Dhruv Maharaj, when he was at home, he's the same 5-year-old boy. When he was at home, he could not even sit on his father's lap. Now he's become so powerful that the whole earth is trembling, the whole earth is being pushed down. What was the difference? Difference was Krishna consciousness. It's not that a pure devotee is going to misuse his power. He never does that. Because he's Krishna conscious, he exhibits only when it's needed to propagate Krishna consciousness. But there are many pastimes of Srila Prabhupada also. But everything was for propagating Krishna consciousness, traveling at his age like that, 14 times around the world, you know. Okay, one cannot argue how is it that Dhruv Maharaj, who was prevented from getting up on the lap of his father, could press down the whole earth. This argument is not very much appreciated by the learned, but it is an example of Nagna Matraka logic. Nagna Matraka logic. By this logic, one would think that because his mother in her childhood was naked, she should remain naked, even when she's grown up. The stepmother of Dhruv Maharaj might have been thinking in a similar way, since she had refused to allow him to get up on the lap of his mother. How could Dhruva perform such wonderful activities as pressing down the whole earth? She must have been very surprised when she learned that Dhruv Maharaj, by concentrating constantly on the Supreme Personality of Godhead within his heart, could press down the entire earth like an elephant who presses down the boat on which it is loaded. So Prabhupada is telling us that, oh, someone may argue, oh, but when he was at home, he did not have that power. Now, why does he have that power? That logic is trying to say, oh, when my mom was a baby, she didn't wear any clothes, but now she should not. That does not make sense. So earlier, yeah, Dhruv Maharaj, he was not able to do those things, but now he's able to. You know, we can't think that, oh, if somebody is on a certain level, they have to continue to remain on the certain level. No, no. Tasmin abhidyayati vishvamatmano
तस्मिन् अदितीयायति विश्वम् आत्मनो
dwaram nirudhyasam ananyadhiya
द्वारं निरुद्यासुम् अनन्या धिया
lokaniruchavasa nipidita brisham
लोकानिरुचवास निपीडित वृषम्
salokapala sharanam yayur harim.
सलोकपाला शरणं ययुर्हरिम्.
When Dhruv Maharaj became practically one in heaviness with Lord Vishnu, the total consciousness, due to his fully concentrating and his closing all the holes of his body, the total universal breathing became choked up, and all the great demigods and all the planetary systems felt suffocated and thus took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When hundreds of persons are sitting in an airplane, although they remain individual units, they share in the total force of the airplane, which runs at thousands of miles per hour. Similarly, when unit energy is identified with the service of the total energy, the unit energy becomes as powerful as the total energy. So when we engage in the service of the Lord, that is our spiritual energy. This is what there's a difference between material energy and spiritual energy. When one is a pure devotee, then he's completely under the shelter of the internal energy of Krishna. As explained in the previous verse, Dhruv Maharaj, because of his spiritual advancement, became almost the total heaviness, and thus he pressed down the whole earth. It was said earlier that he became as heavy as the Brahman, because he got perfection. He was in samadhi, he was just totally absorbed in on the Paramatma. Then he became as heavy as the Brahman. Moreover, by such spiritual power, his unit body became the total body of the universe. So he still remains an individual. It's not that he's become God. That's the point to understand. He's not become God. He's just realized he's a part and parcel of God. And as a part and parcel of God, he's sharing the power of God. So Thus, when he closed the holes of his unit body to firmly concentrate his mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, all the units of the universe, namely all the living entities, including the big demigods, felt the pressure of suffocation, as if their breathing were being choked. Therefore, they all took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they were perplexed as to what had happened. So he's become so powerful, he's become as heavy as the Brahman, and then he's gotten this spiritual energy. And that's the reason when he controlled his senses, he was just concentrating on the Supreme Lord. He stopped his breathing. So everyone else is feeling choked. This example of Dhruv Maharaj closing the holes of his personal body and thereby closing the breathing holes of the total universe clearly indicates that a devotee, by his personal devotional service, can influence all the people of the whole world to become devotees of the Lord. If there is only one pure devotee in pure Krishna consciousness, he can change the total consciousness of the world into Krishna consciousness. This is not very difficult to understand if we study the behavior of Dhruv Maharaj. So here we can understand that Dhruv Maharaj is a pure devotee. He stopped breathing, so the entire universe is feeling suffocated. Similarly, Prabhupada is explaining that if there's one pure devotee, he can influence the consciousness of everyone and make everyone Krishna conscious. And we are seeing it practically happen. Prabhupada was one devotee traveling all over the world, and how he influenced, encouraged so many thousands and thousands of people to take up Krishna consciousness. Until today, by reading his books, there are millions of people becoming devotees. Deva Ucha
Deva Ucha
Nevam Vidamo Bhagavan Pranarodam
Nevam Vidamo Bhagavan Pranarodam
Chara Charasya Kila Satvadhamnaha
Charasyan Kila Satvadamna
Videhi Tanno Regina Vimoksham
Videhi Tanno Rijinad Vimoksham
Prapta Vayam Tvam Sharanam Sharanyam.
Prapta Vayam Tvam Sharanam Sharanyam.
The demigod said, Dear Lord, you are the refuge of all moving and non-moving living entities. We feel all living entities to be suffocating. The breathing process is choked up. We have never experienced such a thing. Since you are the ultimate shelter of all surrendered souls, we have therefore approached you. Kindly save us from this danger. Dhruv Maharaj's influence, attained by executing devotional service unto the Lord, was felt even by the demigods who had never before experienced such a situation. Because of Dhruv Maharaj's controlling his breathing, the entire universal breathing process was choked. So the air was restrained, everyone's senses are not able to breathe. It is by the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that material entities cannot breathe, whereas spiritual entities are able to breathe. Material entities are products of the Lord's external energy, whereas spiritual entities are products of the Lord's internal energy. The demigods approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the controller of both kinds of living entities, in order to know why the breathing was choked. So here the demigods also understand that God is the refuge, that the Lord, He's the refuge of everyone, of living entities in the material world or in the spiritual world. He's the supreme refuge. The Supreme Lord is the ultimate goal for the solution to all problems within this material world. In the spiritual world, there are no problems, but the material world is always problematic. Yeah, sorry. So, we have material problems, and we're always trying to fix that material problem by our minds, by something material. But by doing so, what we are doing is we are just shifting the problem from one to another. For example, to solve the problem of transportation, before people would ride in carriages drawn by horses or bullock carts. Would take longer, of course. But now to travel faster, we have created cars, supercars, airplanes. So travel, of course, has become so convenient. We can go anywhere we want within this earth in just a short time. But what have we added? Added to pollution, noise pollution, um, air pollution, added to what we call global warming. So to solve one problem, we have created so many other problems. Actually, the ultimate refuge of all problems is to approach the Supreme Lord. In the spiritual world, there are no problems, but the material world is always problematic. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the master of both the material and spiritual worlds, it is better to approach him in all problematic situations. So this is the solution. I mean, we are all faced with problems, one point or the other. We are all faced with so many problems. What to do? Approach Krishna. Therefore, those who are devotees have no problems in this material world. Vishwam Purna Sukhyate Caitaniya Caritamita. Devotees are free from all problems because they are fully surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For a devotee, everything in the world is very pleasing because he knows how to use everything in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So the pure devotee is very happy even in the material world because to him there is no difference. He is completely absorbed in Krishna's service. His consciousness is completely absorbed for the service of Krishna. Everything he does is for the pleasure of Krishna. So he's always in a happy position. Susukham, devotional service, is happily performed. That is the position of the pure devotee. And so that's the reason the devotees are so kind. They understand everyone is suffering in the material world. And why is that? Due to lack of Krishna consciousness. And that's the reason they're trying to give Krishna consciousness to everyone so that everyone can become happy. Everyone can become happy. Sri Bhagwan Vacha
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha
Ma Bheshtabalam Tapaso Duratyayan
Ma Beshtabalam Tapaso Dura Yayan
Nivartayishye Pratiyata Swadhama
Nivartayishe Pratiyata Svatama
Yato Hiva Prana Nirodhasat
Yato Hiva Prana Nirodha Asit
Autana Padirmai Sangatatma.
Uttanapadirmai Sangatatma.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead replied, My dear demigods, do not be perturbed by this. It is due to the severe austerity and full determination of the son of King Uttanapada, who is now fully absorbed in thought of me. He has obstructed the universal breathing process. You can safely return to your respective homes. I shall stop this war in his severe acts of austerities, and you will be saved from this situation. Here, one word Sangatatma is misinterpreted by the Mayavadi philosophers who say that the self of Dhruv Maharaj became one with the Supreme Self, the personality of Godhead. So even though Dhruv Maharaj has become so powerful, he's become as heavy as Brahman, his breathing has become like the total breathing of the universe. He is still a living entity. He's still an individual soul. He's not become God. He's not become Krishna. He's not become Vishnu. He's still Dhruv Maharaj. The Mayavadi philosophers want to prove by this word that the super soul and individual soul become united in this way, and that after such unification, the individual soul has no separate existence. But here it is clearly said by the Supreme Lord that Dhruv Maharaj was so absorbed in meditation on the thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that he himself, the universal consciousness, was attracted to Dhruva. In order to please the demigods, he wanted to go himself to Dhruv Maharaj to stop him from this severe austerity. So we can see God is different and Dhruv Maharaj is different. Dhruv Maharaj has become self-realized. Now he's attained the stage of Brahman, but he's still an individual soul. He's not become God. God is going to go now to meet him. At no point can a soul become God. Only God is God. The Mayavadi
So well
philosophers,
explained. So
yeah,
well explained. Yeah,
mm,
right.
that's right. So the Mayavadi philosophers' conclusion that the super soul and the individual soul become united is not supported by this statement. Rather, the super soul, the personality of Godhead, wanted to stop Dhruv Maharaj from this severe austerity. So even God has become so attracted that he wants to go now personally. By pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one pleases everyone. Just as by watering the root of a tree, one satisfies every branch, twig, and leaf of the tree. We are trying to please different individuals. We are trying to please ourselves, we think by pleasing separately every individual, we are going to make everyone happy. But the secret is to please Krishna. When we please Krishna, automatically everyone will become happy because the Paramatma is there in everyone's heart. He's there in everyone's heart. So if we are pleasing Krishna, the Paramatma in the heart, he makes everyone happy to, and then that is the success. If one can attract the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one naturally attracts the whole universe because Krishna is the supreme cause of the universe. All the demigods were afraid of being totally vanquished by suffocation. But the personality of Godhead assured them that Dhruv Maharaj was a great devotee of the Lord and was not about to annihilate everyone in the universe. A devotee is never envious of other living entities. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the fourth canto, eighth chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam entitled Dhruv Maharaj Leaves Home for the Forest. So here the difference is being pointed out. Yesterday the question was raised that when Hiranyakashipu was born, then there was fear. Earth was trembling. That time they were really fearful. They didn't know what was happening. Here also they are fearful. They don't know what's happening. But the Lord is explaining to them, don't worry. Dhruv Maharaj is a great devotee. He's not envious. He's not going to annihilate anyone in the universe. He's not going to harm anyone. He's not envious of any other living entity. So the fear was there that time, but Hiranyaksha were very envious. Yeah, they were very envious, and so that's the reason they did so many abominable activities. But here, Dhruv Maharaj, although he's also powerful, the earth is trembling, the demigods have become fearful. The Lord is telling them, don't be fearful. Don't be fearful. He's my devotee. And nothing's going to happen to you. You will be all again you will all be always in your glory. So we'll stop here for today.
Yes.
Thank you so much for listening and joining in Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Hare Krishna.